Señoras, señores, el compañero.
Ladies and gentlemen, Daniel Ortega, President of Nicaragua, wishes to send to you and to the world the following message. Mr. President, brother and sister delegates, the people of Nicaragua salute the peoples represented in this 78th General Assembly of the United Nations, with their heads held high, as always, because we have managed to live overcoming all the tragedies and catastrophes inflicted by the history of domination, cruelty, intervention, occupation, and interference in all aspects of our life, including our electoral processes, intervened in by the empires and their economic and military might, which they have used to try and destroy us and dominate us. We are living through the extinction of the imperialist, colonialist model of looting and genocide whose greed has impacted nature and our world. A world of many heritages, languages, and steadfast ways of life. In these times of decision and substantive change, and in order to recover all of our rights and values in the face of overwhelming criminal greed of colonialism and imperialism in all their manifestations, Nicaragua continues to engage in all the battles of genuine freedom for light and the truth that cannot be concealed. We are the immense and invincible force of a courageous new world, of peoples who do not allow themselves to be separated from hope or faith, and from our growing spiritual strength we demand respectful cooperation, solidarity, and human fraternity, so that everything may change, be transformed, and we may live peacefully and securely, working and prospering in our own sacred land, in shared destiny and prosperity. This world, which has now stood up and has started to make its way, claiming its own voice and identity, its ancestral and current knowledge, this world of a culture of peace, has spoken at the 78th United Nations General Assembly to continue with ever greater self-assurance and certainty, sowing, cultivating, and harvesting the indispensable transformations. Even at this United Nations, whose nature has been distorted, sadly turning it into a body that is servile and dependent on the powers that be. The new world, which belongs to us all, demands respect. It demands peace. It insists on peace, justice for everyone. It demands remembrance, history, reparation, and non-repetition. That is why, from this rostrum of the 78th General Assembly, we demand that the United Nations enforce the mandate of the International Court of Justice in The Hague, which in 1986 sentenced the United States of America to compensate Nicaragua, at least in part, for the costs of the destruction, permanent aggression, pain, and suffering of hundreds of thousands of families during the insane and vengeful war imposed on our country and our people in what was then called the counter-revolution. Of course, this will not restore lives. It does not alleviate the broken hearts of so many families and individuals, but at least it allows for rebuilding for all Nicaraguans the economic, social, productive, cultural infrastructure which those responsible shattered with their grotesque intervention, but which, as always, every time, was defeated by the honour, integrity and glory of Nicaragua's spirit, by the grace of God. Sandino lives lives in each of these victories against nefarious and diabolical imperialism. And Sandino is in this room today, demanding that all of us comply and enforce the law and international law to indemnify the Nicaraguan people with what they deserve in all justice and truth, after having asserted so much the right to peace and life, insisting on what belongs to us: sovereignty, freedom, harmony, to make our way in our own destinies. We demand that the United Nations pronounce in its own right and order the government of the United States of America to comply with the historic judgment that condemned them and obliged them to recognize Nicaragua, and that the United States be forced to abide by it in all its commendable points. Nicaragua, with the dignity and heroism of our struggles, races, peoples, cultures, of living well, demands this closure, and also join the demand of all the peoples and countries that have spoken from this place to denounce the aggressive, interventionist, arbitrary, unjust policies whose coercive unilateral measures are not only illegal and illegitimate, but constitute a destabilizing, destructive, warlike method, imposing changes of government through coups d'etat, attempts to bring about coups, and acts of vandalism known these days as colour revolutions, causing grief to so many families among so many peoples. We stand in permanent solidarity with the peoples and countries that live through these uncivilized barbarisms, which indeed repeat the waves and echoes of the imperialist, colonialist, fascist models, which have caused the death of millions of human beings, imposing regimes of terror and deprivation, with shameful tides and unprecedented tsunamis of migration. These tragedies trace the desperation of injustice and the neo-colonial pretense to silence, dominate and exclude, so as to continue plundering the wealth of the world's peoples. Entire countries have been laid waste in these brutal scorched earth policies, which seek to satisfy the beastly appetites of the earth's imperialists. Entire countries have been occupied, and their peoples sacrificed and massacred via the same atrocious policies and actions, violating all rights, which reinforce what we know and denounce here again as hate crimes. Our permanent and combative solidarity with the Palestinian people, the Syrian people, the Sahrawi people, the Eritrean people, the people in all those places that have wanted to create fascist and neo-Nazi enclaves. Our permanent and combative solidarity to all the peoples in struggle in Africa, Asia and Latin America. We are peoples and countries that resist and fight the blockades, the economic warfare, the systemic and permanent intervention in the social, cultural, economic and political life of all of our institutions. As you note, more and more violations of all rights on top of one another. Our combative solidarity with the people of Cuba, with Martí, Fidel, Raúl, Miguel Díaz-Canel, over 62 years of murderous blockade. Our combative solidarity with the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela, where Chavez lives on, the struggle goes on, and where Nicolás has defeated all attempts at destruction. Our combative solidarity with the peoples and governments of our Central American region that do not bend the knee in the struggle for security, for peace, so as to confront and conquer the hell of poverty. Our solidarity with Honduras and its brave president Xiomara Castro, Honduras, our fraternal neighbour, where Morazan and Sandino prevailed, our family, fraternal embrace, always in solidarity. Our combative solidarity with Bolivia, the great people of Tupac Katari, who are moving ahead amidst the same threats as always, with the people of Argentina and their sovereign rights over the Malvinas Islands, with Puerto Rico, brave and unstoppable in their just struggle for independence. Our strength is with the People's Republic of China, the power that today shows the world and the human family how solidarity, respectful cooperation, generous brother and sisterhood can be practiced and lived between older brothers and sisters, younger brothers and sisters, but all as one big family with a common destiny, such that we may fight to overcome the actions of dispossession and economic stagnation and poverty imposed as it is on so many peoples. Our active and combative solidarity with the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in its historical battles for sovereignty and rights. To the people of Belarus, always dignified and in solidarity, our respect and recognition. Our solidarity and combative strength with the historic struggles waged by the Russian Federation for peace and security, for a world that we must all defend from the growing threats of empire and their neo-Nazi policies, their fascist emblems and contents, which intend to return us to the perversion of expansionism and wars of domination, which left millions of dead and families destroyed around the globe. Our support to the Russian Federation is an unwavering support and an inescapable human alliance for security, dialogue and harmony, essential, irreplaceable for the human community. Our solidarity and accompaniment with the Islamic Republic of Iran, another example of sharing and coexisting with peoples ravaged by imperial greed. Despite the incessant, excessive and infernal arrogance of those who think they are superior, we reaffirm it here today. They do not separate us, and together we travel along paths of courage and dignity. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen delegates, from this forum we demand respect for the United Nations system in order to return to its founding values. In this other world where we learn, keep ourselves abreast and continue defending just, sovereign, self-defined models based on the maxim respect for the rights of others is peace. Ex-Tercel Commander Human Chavez Frias had already expressed this before the United Nations General Assembly in 2005. He said the United Nations must be refounded, and this was taken up by Nicaragua's Foreign Minister of Dignity, Miguel de Soto, also President of the United Nations General Assembly, when in 2008 he raised the urgency of refounding the United Nations to serve the world's peoples. The United Nations has just held a meeting of heads of state and government of the G77 plus China in Cuba, which reached agreements of fundamental importance for the world, agreements that must be taken on board and fulfilled so that, with a consciousness of freedom and of the brother and sisterhood of the human family, we can continue to break the chains of slavery and dependence, of submission and subordination, of servile obedience, which the selfish, ambitious and perfidious colonial imperial interest intends, even at this stage in history, to continue imposing on us. We look with hope and see the recent meetings and enlargement of the BRICS, which today, with Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and joined by Argentina, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Ethiopia and Iran represent new forces and strength in the struggles for our economic and financial sovereignty as free and capable peoples. In the face of all the advances in science, technologies, techniques, including those pretentiously called artificial intelligence, as if not themselves the fruit of human intelligence, Nicaragua demands the full participation of the peoples who have made possible with our blood and resources these advances of the conquerors. We demand what is ours, the right to fully live this development, improving the conditions of labour, study and life by right of our peoples. At the same time as we propose inclusion, Nicaragua also proposes the rational, beneficial use of these resources of humanity, which in the hands of the malevolent constitute weapons of mass destruction against countries, peoples and communities. Always together, always advancing, as Sandino said, with proposals based on respect, consideration, brother and sisterhood, and a nation for all, based on our country's sovereignty, Nicaragua joins the intense search for and struggle to defend our inheritance of natural resources, our cultures, our languages, our ways of life, our original communities working every day and tirelessly for peace, which is not only a right, but an urgent necessity for the survival of humanity. That is to say, for life as we all deserve it. The aggressions which they arrogantly and hotly call sanctions do not define us, nor do they intimidate us, nor do they disable or bend us, nor do they lead us to sell out or surrender. We indeed do not know the word surrender. Allow me to reaffirm it. The aggressions which they arrogantly and hotly call sanctions shall not define us or intimidate us, disable or bend us, or lead us to sell out or to surrender. We do not know the word surrender. Life is made up of daily struggles to assert what belongs to us. A world free of war, of chemical and nuclear weapons, of looting, ignorance, fraud, of new deceptions and brazen theft, including the assault on our talent. A world free of offences, because war, looting and poverty caused by them, misery, pandemics, the lack of health, education, housing, the lack of favourable living conditions, all constitute offences that are degrading, humiliating, cruel, degrading, and an immense prison where human security is denied, promoting seas of exodus, bereft of dignity, cutting off hope, joy, culture, and life for the majority of the planet. A world free of brutality, free of aggression, of arrogance, a world free of supreme ignorance, a world free of hatred, evil, misery, a world free of sadness, of emotional toxicity, a world free of deformation, apathy, depression, intentionally created by drugs, which have become another form of terrorism, among so many other perversions and provocations that besiege us. A world free of impositions, a world of vigour, courage, values, a world committed to a simple, powerful, forceful common good. That love is stronger than hatred and that it can conquer all. Love which we all so dearly need to build trust so as definitely to install new horizons and prodigious futures. We want a world of spiritual beings who are also human beings, imperfect, but who can and must close ranks to recover the goodness and strength of this planet that we share. Above and beyond all the forms of terrorism inflicted on us, there is the spirit, the eternal flame, the insignia and axiom of our human condition. For that we fight. That is why we will win. And because of this, we will overcome. Written in Managua, 26 September 2003, Daniel Ortega Savera, Rosario Murillo. Thank you very much.
I thank the Minister.
We were listening to